Okay folks, I thought I'd give you a quick tour of my star system now that I've got most of the details locked down. Not guaranteed not to change if I can use a double negative, but it's pretty much baked. Now it won't look like this in the final Elite, of course, because this is a completely different piece of software, but it'll give you an idea of the kind of place that we're heading to. So what I've done is I've found a way inside the SpaceEngine tool, which I've shown you before, to program my own system. So I have a star called Drew, which is just me showing off really, but it's just an easy way to find it. So off we go, travelling through space. I've set it not too far away from Sol. It's about 100 light years away, not a real star at the moment. So a little bit of travelling through space before we get there. And all the details of the system, I'm still going to negotiate them with Frontier when we get down to the detail, but it's not essential for me right now to do that for writing, which is convenient. So the main star in this system, which will be called Prism in the game, I'm hoping, is an orange star. It's not quite the same as the Sun, which is a yellow star, G-type. This is a K-type star, which is a little bit cooler, which means the planets have to be a little bit closer in. And if I take you to the first planet, it's actually what we call a hot Jupiter, which is effectively a gas giant, rather like our own Jupiter, but it is, as you can see, hot. It's very, very close to the star, and this means the temperature here would be very, very high. The planet would be very, very not very dense at all, because the heat would be making it radiate. So it's much, much larger than Jupiter would be, and obviously a very, very bright object in the sky. You can actually see it from my moon, Chion, which is quite a nice sight, although it's not all that close. And if I just buzz you around there, you can see the star now in the distance. Now the star is not very far away in this particular example. We're orbiting only about 0.1 of an AU. The distance between the Earth and the Sun is 1 AU, just in case you weren't aware of that. So that's 93 million miles. We're only down about 9.3 million miles from the Sun, so the temperature here would be well, literally astronomical. It would be extremely hot indeed. SpaceEngine allows me to put rings or not. Whether or not this planet will really have rings, I'm not entirely sure, but they're pretty for now, so I'm going to leave them in. So that is the first planet. That planet is called Mystra, and all the planets in this system are named after a Greek myth by the name of a chap called Autoculus. And if you want to go and look him up on the internet, you'll find out all about him. These names are quite nicely poetic, but A, they're not in use in the frontier environment, and B, they're not really in use anywhere else either. They're not kind of super famous Greek myths like Apollo and all that lot from Battlestar Galactica, or some of the more famous Greek myths like Hercules and Eurydice and Hermes and all those kind of characters. These are of a similar type, but they've never been used before, so that's the naming convention. So the next planet out is a little bit more where our adventures start to happen. This is the planet Daedalian. Now Daedalian is quite an interesting world. We don't really have an analogy for this in our solar system. Daedalian is what we'd call in exoplanet terms a super Earth. It's like the Earth, but it's much, much bigger. And in fact here you can see it with an enormous black spot on it. I'll get to explain what that is in a moment. Now Daedalian is an ocean world. This is a world that is entirely covered by water to a depth of probably several hundred kilometres. So it's not like the Earth in that sense. It's much, much bigger. This planet would probably be twice the diameter and more than twice the mass of the Earth. The gravity on the surface would be very, very strong, and the atmosphere would be probably totally almost water vapour. It would probably be much hotter than the Earth with very, very high atmospheric pressure. But this is a totally realistic planet in the sense it could exist out there. You know, a planet that has got this much water on it is definitely a possibility. It wouldn't be habitable in the normal sense, but it, you know, there could be some strange aquatic monsters lurking down there. In fact, I had an interesting discussion with Frontier about this as to whether there might be some rather interesting types of fishing going on down here. So maybe you'll see that in the game when we get the planetary landings. But you'd have to be pretty brave, because some of those creatures, to survive the sort of pressures and temperatures down there, I imagine they would be pretty fierce machine. So why is there this big black spot? Well, that's actually the shadow of the moon in the system, which if I just roll the planet round, you'll be able to see. And the moon in over here is, if I can find it, there it is the planet, sorry, the moon, not the planet. It would be a planet if it was going in orbit around the sun itself, but it's not. This is the moon Cheon, which I've created, and if we head off in that direction, you'll be able to get a good look at it. Cheon is a moon going round Daedalian, but it's habitable. It's a moon with an atmosphere. In fact, it's a moon which is very similar to the Earth. It's not quite as big as the Earth. You can see, as we will spin around it in a moment, there we go, you'll see it's got very familiar look and feel to it. It's got clouds, it's got continents, it's got oceans, and you can see it there casting a nice shadow on Daedalian in the background. Let me just fast forward time for a moment and you'll see that shadow move aside as the planet orbits. Just moving, there we go. And that's actually an eclipse that's happening on Daedalian in the background, which is quite nice. One of the good things about SpaceEngine is it does do all this realism for you, which is really nice. Now Cheon is rather like the Earth, but it's what we call tidally locked to the big planet Daedalian. Rather like the moon is with the Earth, it's always the same face of the moon is always pointing to the Earth. The same face of Cheon is always pointing towards Daedalian. So the length of the orbit of Cheon around Daedalian is the same as the length of the day. It has to be. That's the way these things actually work. So from the surface, as you saw in one of my previous videos, Daedalian never moves. So if you're lucky enough to be standing in a spot that can see it, you get the beautiful globe in the sky permanently. Conversely, on the other side of the planet, you'll never ever see it at all. So you know, you want to pick your spot when you're looking at this planet. What else can I tell you about this one? Well, it's very Earth-like. It has a breathable atmosphere. Gravity is a little bit lower than Earth. It's slightly smaller, which just makes things a little bit easier. But the temperature is more even. We don't have any ice caps here, although we do have snow-covered mountains. Now this planet is where, sorry, moon, is where most of the action is going to occur, at least in the initial stages. This is the hot seat. This is the place that gets invaded. This is the place where some of the battles take place. And this is the scene for most of the major characters, certainly at the beginning of the book. So that is Cheon, a habitable moon in orbit around an ocean world. So a slightly different environment to the one that we know on the Earth. There it is. Now there are other planets in the system. Let me just take you out to Niera, which is a Mars-like world. I'm sure you know what Mars is like, kind of dead world, a red planet. Niera is quite a long way out compared to Daedalian and Cheon, and rather like Mars, it was habitable once, but now it is a dead and dying world. As you can see, doesn't look very hospitable, has a very thin atmosphere, and there's not much there of interest now. But obviously with the technology that's involved in Frontier's time, this might be a terraform target. It might be possible with the right atmosphere to reinvigorate this planet and bring it back to life. But right now, as you can see, it's a cratered, a dead world, and that's another part of the solar system there. Further out, I have the planet Euricula, which is rather like Neptune, and pretty much almost a carbon copy of Neptune, to be honest, which means it's actually quite featureless. There's not much to see, and it's got a large moon, which we'll have a quick look at in a moment. But as you can see, it's a big ice giant planet, some faint wisps of cloud. It's just about visible there, orbiting the sun quite a long way out now. It's very cold out here by this point. There's not much heat, and thus there's not a great deal of activity. It has a moon called Anticula, which is just out here. Again, nothing very special about this place. It's cold, it's dark, and it's a fairly ordinary moon, but it gives you an idea of this sort of level of detail that SpaceEngine can actually generate here. It does do a good job of lunar surfaces. If we have a quick zoom past, you'll see what I mean, is it generates some quite nice terrain as we zoom in. It looks very, very realistic. That's all procedurally generated down there, that's not real. As you can see, it does quite a nice job. Just spin around, hope you're not feeling too dizzy. There we go. And if we zoom down on the planet, we'll be a little bit careful. There we are. Let's slow those engines down, going a bit fast. There we go. Maybe a bit faster than that. There we go. You can see some nice procedurally generated terrain as we shoot past. It does quite a good job, as you can see. And it'll take a moment there to update the graphics. And we can see that it zooms in and zooms out nicely. So yeah, quite realistic stuff. I'm quite impressed by what SpaceEngine can do. It'll be interesting to see how well the Elite Dangerous game manages to do these kind of environments. So what else have we got out here? There's one last planet in the system called Amphithea. You saw a picture of this on my blog entry last week, just as a demo of what you can generate with a simple piece of code. This is effectively a dwarf planet. It's rather like Pluto in our solar system, and obviously we don't have any pictures of Pluto yet, we haven't been there, but it's very dark out here, it's very, very cold. You can see there's not much on the surface other than rock and ice, the same sort of environment. As you can see the sunlight here is very, very pale now, not much strength to it. My camera is actually struggling to get a good lock on that. You can see it's fizzling up. This is an icy world. There's not much out here. It's very dark, it's very dim, and not really a place to stay very long. So quickly going back to Chion, let's zoom back into the nice warm heart of this solar system. What I can do with this, which you won't be able to do with Elite Dangerous actually, is do your seamless planetary landings. This is not all that smooth for SpaceEngine, because it has to kind of render it on the fly. But what we can do, and if I can get this angle right, let's just see if we can get Chion kind of hanging nicely in the sky. That'll do probably about there. And we point that kind of at the right angle there, and then we can fly forwards and down a little bit, up a bit. I don't want to crash. There we go. And we actually managed to fly over a hurricane there. Coming into the atmosphere, I'll slow the ship down a little bit, and you can see as we come into the atmosphere, there we go, we've landed, and Chion is, sorry, Daedalian is hanging in the sky rather nicely, sort of not a moonlit lake, but a kind of a planet-lit lake, as it were, which you can see. So that gives you an idea. So quite a powerful system. That is the Prism star system where most of the action is going to take place, and in future updates we'll see a little bit more from the surface of Chion. So I hope that's given you an idea. Good news, of course, on my permission to proceed with the plot. That's all baked now. So this Monday I start writing Elite Reclamation, so the updates are going to focus on my progress. Anyway, it's been a pleasure. Hopefully speak to you all soon. Take it easy now. Bye.